Support for this Raptors Weekly podcast comes from Levelwear. Located in Richmond Hill, Ontario, Levelwear provides officially licensed Toronto Raptors NBA and NHL apparel. Head to levelwearshop.com for exclusive gear and merchandise, and for a limited time get free shipping on select orders. To get an additional 10% off, use the promo code RaptorsRepublic at checkout. Offer expires on July 1st. Visit levelwearshop.com today.
Welcome to Raptors Weekly for the week of June the 8th. NBA Finals are underway. The Cavs are going to win this in 6 games. I know it. And having won the title without Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving, LeBron James will surpass Michael Jordan as the greatest player ever. That's what's going to happen over the next couple of weeks. And I wish we could talk about that, but we can't because this is a Raptors podcast. And helping me get through this podcast are Will. Hey, Will.
How's it going?
Long time.
I'm back.
Did you recover from your 18 Jamesons at the RR party?
Definitely recovered from that. I did not recover, however, from like the 30-minute discussion we had about Jordan versus LeBron at like midnight outside the bar. Yeah, it was pretty fun. Andrew missed that one because he had to go check out a concert. But yeah, Andrew, it was a discussion between the Talking Raptors guys and Will basically, and myself, just debating the merits of LeBron versus Jordan. And where do you stand on that one, Andrew?
They're from different times. Like LeBron is unquestionably bigger, stronger, faster than Michael Jordan is, and I think that has a huge difference. If Jordan is playing today, Jordan's probably on HGH too. I mean, maybe on HGH, not necessarily also.
He took a 2-week trip to Miami to recover. All right.
Yeah. Sorry. So Jordan has access to modern recovery techniques if he's playing today.
It's called Germany.
Yeah, exactly. I think improves his physical abilities. Look, he would not be as big as LeBron. LeBron would be able to push him around and get by him still. But, I mean, if we're talking talent, I feel like Jordan was individually better, but I don't know if he saw the floor in the kind of way that LeBron did, and they played the game. I don't know. It's different.
Yeah. One of the arguments that Barry was making, and I was kind of supporting him, is that like one of the things that Jordan did was he was 6 for 6 in NBA Finals, and LeBron might lose 3 very easily.
No, you just said he's going to win it in 6.
Well, I'm saying he might lose 3.
Also,
right?
by the way, how dare you for not having the conviction to stand by your Cavs in 5 that you really want?
That's what I said is he might lose 3. He's definitely going to win this one, but he might lose 3. And one of the things is that Jordan is like undefeated in NBA Finals, which is something pretty special. He got there to the biggest stage and never lost. That's Andrew. There's some weight in that, man.
Sure. There's definitely some weight in it, but that's a stat that also takes into account the quality of competition you play and the quality of your teammates as well. I mean, I think it's on a different scale when you're comparing LeBron dragging this rickety Cavs team all the way through to the finals if he can win a few games with this Cavs team.
In the East.
Sure, but I mean, there were some years where Michael Jordan didn't have
I don't know, man. I think one of the arguments being made at around 1 a.m. outside Real Sports was that Jordan kind of played in the West of that time, like how dominant the West is today. I think he played in that kind of a conference.
This is a hell of a way to start our Raptors podcast.
Yeah, who were the dominant teams in 98, 97 that he had to go through in the East?
Well, Miami was there. Pistons were there. Indiana was pretty good. The Knicks were there. The Knicks weren't that great.
Yeah, but like we're talking about teams that like the year he retired, none of those teams could.
Oh, the year he retired. Sorry.
Like as soon as that Bulls team went away, the East struggled to kind of get back to a place of dominance after that.
All right. Let's move on. That's it for part 1. Okay. All right. Let's get back on some Raptors talk because that's why you're here. Let's start with some free agency talk. And the last podcast we did was quite entertaining. We talked about DeMar DeRozan and shipped him off everywhere. And then the Doctor Is In podcast basically copied it and had their own take on the exact same trades. And that was a lot of fun. And one guy we didn't kind of talk about from a free agency perspective at all is Lou Williams. So he had a great season, obviously. A lot of production from offense. Polarized some fans by the way he played and how ball dominant he was. So the question we're posing at this point, let's start with Will on this one, is that like if he's available at the right price, whether that's like $7 million a year or whatever it is, should the Raptors bring him back from like a purely basketball point of view?
From a purely basketball point of view, like that sounds like irregardless of price. I mean, I don't even know what is the right price for Lou Will, because like look, last year Swaggy P got $24 million over 4 years, right? And if Lou gets you have to imagine Lou gets something similar to that, because he doesn't at least have the headaches that Swaggy brings. And if it's that price, if that's the floor for Lou Will's services, then I'd say no, just because his services are a little bit redundant with Greivis Vasquez. They kind of overlap. When you have them together, the skills aren't additive. They're they overlap. And Lou, he's a great individual scorer. He's a nice thing to have off the bench. But he's too much of a one-way player, and a lot of his success on offense is predicated on him having a really, really quick first step. And he's 29, and I mean, he looks healthy, but I give it a couple of years, and I don't know. It's just not the kind of player that I'd want the Raptors to go after.
If he was available for like $3 million in some weird way, like would you have? That's why I made the point, basketball point of view. Like, would you be comfortable with Lou Williams playing 25 minutes a game next year in the same manner he did this year, like in that style of play? Like, would you be okay with that?
Yeah, for $3 million, yeah.
Okay.
I think Lou Will's a little. He gets a bad rep, even though I think people overlook what he does on offense, especially with a pretty limited bench group. I don't know. The bench was actually pretty solid last year.
Andrew?
Yeah, I think it's all relative to how long the contract that you give him is and how much per year. If you can't put together a bench unit that can score effectively, then there are nights where he can carry you on that bench and be very helpful in that role. I think it's more valuable to try to build a bench unit that can play together. But if you can't do that, then I think that's a great sort of release valve, plan B, or even trying to build a more cohesive bench. And if you can bring him back at the right price, then on nights when he has it, play him and enjoy that. And if he doesn't have it, then don't look to him the same way you would. Don't just keep having him try to breathe any kind of life into the second unit scoring. Just have them try to work without him.
Yeah, see, where I stand with this is that, like, I have a major problem with the way Lou Williams plays basketball. Like, the way Dwayne Casey has him play basketball, which is very much individual oriented. It's not in a team context, or it's in a very limited team context. So from that angle, I'm like, I don't want to go through another year of like Lou Will playing 28 minutes a game and basically jacking up shots at the end of quarters and kind of taking the game over and make or miss, feast or famine. Like, I don't want that type of basketball being played. That's not an indictment on Lou Williams. It's more how Dwayne Casey chose to use him. Like, as Andrew said, I'm with you. Like, if he's on board in a team role where he's like, in a limited role where he's efficient and he's productive, I'm for that. But if it's just more of like what we saw last season, I don't know if that's healthy for the team.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's also a matter of if you pay him something substantial, like more than the mid-level, you want your sixth man to be able to actually play with your starters. Like, you're not just running out hockey lineups, which Dwayne Casey does have a tendency to do. You want like an Andre Iguodala type to come off the bench, like complement the starters, because he is going to be a very important part of the team. And Lou doesn't really do that. Like, it's hard for him to play with Lowry and DeMar, because then you're introducing defensive matchup problems. It's a really small backcourt if you do that. DeRozan and Lowry are the core of the team. So what's the point of bringing in a six man that can't actually play effectively with the key players, right? So, yeah.
Andrew, finish this one off for us.
I mean, like, there's certainly a point to that. If you're bringing him back, you want to make it so that he's not your sixth man off the bench. He's not the guy who's going to be stepping up to play with the second unit because he can't play two-way basketball in crunch time. So I think Will's right. If you can bring him back at a price that just allows him to be a weapon off the bench when needed, that's fantastic. That's really helpful. But if he's going to have to be more of a focal point because of the contract that comes with it, then it's probably not worth it if you want to be a contender, given the rest of the lineup.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's as much to do on how he's used as anything. I think we all kind of want a talent like him, like a scorer like him on the team. We saw Leandro Barbosa at Golden State. I mean, when he was with the Raptors, he was just pretty much annoying because he used to go one-on-one all the time. There was no discipline in his game. But you take him in a Golden State context where he's not the second best player on the court, and suddenly he's a very valuable player. I think the same kind of logic applies to Lou Williams, is that if he's here, he better know his role basically, and not try to be an all-star here.
I mean, that was his role though, right? Like that's what you were saying earlier. Like that was his role, was to just shoot it every time.
That was his role as defined by the coach.
Yeah.
What I'm saying, that definition needs to change.
He's still there, though, the coach.
Yeah, he's here. He's here. We'll talk about him. We'll talk about him when the Tom Thibodeau rumors heat up. Don't worry.
Okay.
All right. So that's that tick. Up next, Will send me a little text and give me an article to BleacherReport.com. By the way, Will, where do we stand on Bleacher Report? Do we like them, or is it a quality space yet, or is it still kind of clickbaity?
It's like an iceberg, kind of. Yeah, like some of their top end columnists are pretty good. Ethan Skolnick, Howard Beck, those guys are really, really solid. They're good reporters too. But there's also just the mountain of crap that they put on that are still slideshows and trade proposals that kind of suck and make no sense. And so, yeah.
Yeah, that trend on the internet where you got to top 20 things and you got to view 20 different pages. That's got to go, man. We can't have that. We can't have that. It's too much. Well, one of those things is one of the articles they posted was a proposal which suggested a potential blockbuster. I don't know if I would call this a blockbuster, but it basically suggested that Kenneth Faried, who seems to be linked to the Raptors, I think in every couple of months, coming to Toronto in exchange for Terrence Ross and the number 20 pick. This seems like a logical deal, I guess, because from the Raptors' perspective, they need a power forward. Terrence Ross is being, not helpful with the stock, and the number 20th pick is something that the Raptor fans, I guess, they won't be heartbroken if they lose. So, Will, let's start with you, since you're the one who kind of brought this up. What are you thinking about this trade? Helpful or not really doing anything?
I think it's one of those trades where on the surface it looks like it would help the Raptors a lot, but in actuality it's just a really bad deal. I mean, it's not that much of a price to pay. The 20th pick is, whatever. And Terrence Ross, I've made a brand out of being out on Terrence Ross. So Faried, he's a good rebounder, but he's not great. He posted a total rebound percentage less than Luis Scola, Ed Davis, Enes Kanter. Jonas posted a much better rebounding percentage than him. And he's only average on defensive rebounding, which is the area the Raptors actually struggle in. He's about 20th in the league in defensive rebounding percentage. So that's not ideal, especially when you're paying a guy $12 million per year over the next 4 years. Then you look at his skill set. He can post up. He can do things on the block, but you already have Jonas down there, so there's gonna be a spacing issue. And he's not that big, so it's hard for him to get shots off in traffic like Jonas can, because at least Jonas is massive. Faried's 6'8", but he can't shoot at all. So he's not like a Draymond Green type, for example, where he can actually, make plays happen with his shooting, with his driving, whatever. And he's a poor defender. His career defensive rating is 109.3. To put that in perspective, that would basically rank as the league's worst defense. So he'd fit right in Toronto, and he wouldn't actually solve any of the defensive issues. So I'm not really seeing a reason why the Raptors should trade for Faried. So I think it's a bad proposal.
Yeah, damn. Will with some serious research on that one. Andrew, I think he was ready for this one. What do you got on Faried v. Ross and 20th pick?
I mean, I think the trade doesn't make sense. Just first off, the money is you have to do a lot more with that trade to make it work under the salary cap, and with the money going back and forth in those two swaps.
Yeah, it basically eats up all the Raptors cap space because they need to renounce Lou and Amir to do this.
Yeah, they would need to renounce them both, and then they need a trade exception, or they need to put another. There's too much salary coming forward as well from Denver to make that work through the CBA. They'd have to fiddle with it, but I mean, everything Will said is true, and you have Faried making $11, $12, $13 million a year for the next 4 years. So you're tying up a lot of money with someone who is not pushing you over the edge. He's not, I mean, we don't have a starting power forward, and he is viewed as a starting power forward type person who the kind of consensus is that the Nuggets are looking to get rid of him, and Masai used to be with the Nuggets and drafted him. So it's kind of like a ready-made online story that kind of writes itself, but I don't think has a lot of actual basis in fact. Faried can't play defense. He clogs the lane, and he's one of those guys who gets really impressive plays. Like, he has highlights and he puts up rebounding numbers, but those rebounding numbers are, he's a guy who like just hunts sometimes for defensive rebounds. And when you're defensive rebounding as a team, if one guy just makes sure he grabs the ball like a DeAndre Jordan type, it makes it look like you're doing a lot better of a job rebounding than you really are. Not to say he's not good at it, but I don't think he is like a Dennis Rodman level rebounder by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, I was like, if you like 2 years ago, I was kind of high on his stock. I thought he was gonna get a jumper at some point and expand his game and do something with it. But really, he looks like he's destined to become a slightly better version of Tyler Hansbrough, and that's kind of harsh. But really, without a jumper,
he can actually score around the basket.
Yeah, he's much better than, but.
Yeah, that's why I said a slightly better version of Tyler Hansbrough. Not Tyler Hansbrough, but he can't shoot. That's my main problem with him. And with Amir Johnson, at least he could hit that like mid-range jumper with some relative consistency. Faried can't do that, and I can't imagine this being good in any sort of way, especially when you consider how much Dwayne Casey likes to space the floor, and a guy like Faried is basically anti that. Like, he would totally not make that happen. And so yeah, I'm not too high on this trade. And one of the main reasons is because he hasn't improved himself. I think his game today is what his game was at the end of 2013 after his second year. He's basically the exact same player, maybe marginally better, but I don't see him like making a jump over in the next 3 years. I don't know, Will. That's just me. I think this is kind of what Faried is for the rest of his career.
He's improved his post-up game, but that's not really what you would want from a player at that position.
Yeah. Plus, we already have Jonas.
Exactly. Yeah. Like,
so if we wanted to like have more post-ups, we can just give the ball to Jonas, which doesn't happen that much.
Yeah. Or Tyler Hansbrough for some hilarity.
Or Tyler Hansbrough. That's enough. The slightly less talented version of Kenneth Faried.
What's up with Andrew and the Tyler hate, eh? All season long, every time you bring him up, it starts like...
It just flows through me.
Why? Were you like a Duke fan back in the day or something? What was it?
No, it just I don't know, something about him just really bugs me, and I was so annoyed when we signed him. And everyone like, he has more stringent defense online and in the comment section than any reasonably good player does. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, it's because he gives you exactly what you expect. Okay, you look at Tyler Hansbrough, you're like, all right, I'm not expecting you to do anything except for rebound and maybe defend, and that's all he does. That's it, and people love it.
Isn't it also the Toronto fan factor? Like, we always love the smaller, gritty guys who just like out there like throwing their ball, like the Ty Domi type. He's basically like a poor man's Ty Domi.
He's very Ty Domi. Yeah,
he is Ty Domi.
He punches people.
Yeah,
he's with Melinda Stronach. Yeah. I don't know.
Okay, I think we got to let Andrew calm down and take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about some Tristan Thompson and JV. Welcome back to part 2 of Raptors Weekly. Andrew has calmed down. Andrew, you all right now?
I'm good.
All right. So we won't bring up Tyler Hansbrough until like the week before our preseason starts. So that's it for the Tyler Hansbrough talk.
And then I'm going nuts.
Yeah. So Will had the Ross Faried thing going on, and you had a question that you posed pre-podcast, and it related to Tristan Thompson. And the question was, is Tristan Thompson better than Jonas Valanciunas? Why are we talking about this specifically? Because it's the summertime and there's not much going on. So, Andrew, tell us, is Tristan Thompson better than JV?
I don't think so. Sorry, go ahead.
It's a broad question. Is it like, do you want Tristan Thompson at this point in his career? Who has the higher ceiling? Well, let's just go. Is he better than JV right now?
Yeah, they're drafted one spot apart, and it was a little bit of a surprise when Thompson went one pick ahead of Valanciunas. The idea was that Valanciunas was a steal at that spot. So, I think I would still want Valanciunas long term. I think that it's really difficult to determine someone's value, especially if they're like an at or slightly above or below replacement level player when they're playing with LeBron James, because he just changes everything so much for you. Like Tristan Thompson can genuinely just focus on rebounding when he's playing with LeBron, and when he's trying to get, like, he's doing a really good position of establishing a box out, of just, I mean, literally putting his hands on guys' hips and pushing them out of the way and getting offensive rebounds. And he's doing a great job of it. But when LeBron is driving to the hoop, you have so many guys who are floating around and trying to collapse on him and dash and bring help. And there's double teams, and you're always going to have an advantage to try to slip in there and grab those rebounds. I mean, no one on Miami really ever did a good job of that, so it's certainly a credit to Thompson that he's been able to do this so well. But I think that we saw a pretty large sample size of him playing without LeBron James, and we thought that there was some upside, that he could be a decent player, he could be maybe a bench guy, maybe a little bit better. But when he's all of a sudden making a giant leap like this when LeBron is there, I think that has a lot more to do with LeBron than it does with Tristan Thompson. So if Tristan Thompson signs like a $12 million a year contract in the summer, I would not be a fan of that unless you know he will always be playing with LeBron for Cleveland.
Yeah, did he reject that kind of deal like earlier?
Yeah, I believe so. But I mean, there's some Rich Paul nonsense going on there.
Yeah, he's getting the max.
So Andrew, like, just to round up, you're saying he's the better player right now, but still long term you'd have JB.
No. Sorry, I'm saying that he looks like the better player because he's playing with LeBron, but he's not actually. I think his ceiling is not nearly as high as Valanciunas. I don't think he's going to be able to. If Valanciunas, I don't think he's ever going to be able to score the way Valanciunas can score. I don't think that he's going to be able to guard the rim the way that Valanciunas could be able to guard the rim. I think he'd be better. He's light years ahead of Valanciunas at guarding the pick and roll, but that's something I would feel more confident in saying Valanciunas can get better at that, or we can change the scheme and just have him sit back, than saying that Tristan Thompson would be more effective.
Yeah. Well, where are you on this one?
I agree. JV's better than Thompson, even just right now. But I mean, it's also a matter of fit. Like, it depends on what you need. So if you just want a guy who's going to come in and defend and rebound like hell, then all right, you can get Tristan Thompson. But JV is definitely the more well-rounded player, I think. And in terms of rebounding, JV actually beat Tristan Thompson in total rebounding percentage last year. It wasn't really that close. Thompson, what he does best is offensive rebounding. But at the same time, Jonas is fine at offensive rebounding as well. I think they do different kinds of offensive rebounding. Like, Tristan's rebounding other people's misses. JV's very large and he's shooting close to the basket, so he rebounds his own misses. Mm-hmm. So that's a little bit skewed, but whatever. If you want to be one of those teams that crashes the glass really hard, like the Bucks, for example, then fine. Tristan Thompson's a better fit than JV. Yeah. And defensively, it's questionable because Tristan Thompson is a little bit too small to guard the rim. Last season, he was like second worst of all qualified players in terms of opponent field goal allowed at the rim was like 56%. This year, even with Mozgov around, and Mozgov's really good at it, Tristan Thompson's at 52.2%, so that's pretty bad. Whereas Jonas, he was pretty weak in years 1 and 2, but this year he actually did improve a lot, and he's at 46.5%. That's comparable to like Tim Duncan and Hassan Whiteside. Obviously, JV is not nearly as good as those comps suggest, but at least he's showing, that elite ability or potential elite ability to guard the rim if he's actually there. But I mean, Thompson's better at pick and roll defense. He can switch, he can stay with a guard kind of, but again, how much do you really want Tristan Thompson to do that?
And we just finished talking about Kenneth Faried in the previous segment. And like, I just think to myself, if you put a guy like Kenneth Faried or even bigger Ed Davis in there with the Cavs the way they are right now, especially Ed Davis, I would say he would kind of perform comparable to Tristan Thompson. What do you think of that one, Andrew?
I don't think Ed Davis can rebound. Is strong enough to do the kind of things that Tristan Thompson has been doing in the at least the playoffs with offensive rebounding. But I think that defensively, I think Ed Davis could give you a little bit better, certainly better rim protection and trying to challenge balls there. And he can slide around in the pick and roll pretty well athletically. So like Thompson this is the problem with it whenever anyone plays with LeBron, is that you can't look at what he's doing with LeBron and say this, like whatever numbers he's putting up or whatever win totals your team is putting up are because of that player, because it's the Boogie Gibson effect. Like Daniel Gibson turned out to be a pretty brutal NBA player when he didn't have LeBron James playing beside him.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I just think that you put Faried or Davis next to LeBron and they'll do something comparable. Yeah, they have strengths where Thompson has weaknesses and vice versa, but overall I think you'd have the similar kind of effect. And prior to LeBron getting there, Thompson was a good player, but I don't think he was anywhere close to what he is this year. I had him ranked like, I remember when Ed Davis and Tristan Thompson went head to head in one of those years, and it was a matchup we all kept an eye on because they were so comparable. And Tristan Thompson like schooled Ed Davis pretty much like every time, and that was only because he's just physically stronger. Like he's more bulkier. Davis is taller, but he's too wiry, and that was his main advantage against him. But I just think comparing him to JV is a bit much, because JV has actual offensive talent, which he can shoot, he can post up, he has an up and under, he has a multitude of moves, and Thompson doesn't have that. He may get that over the next 5-6 years, but at this point, I don't see. I would not make that deal if it was available to me.
One of the more interesting things about comparing Valanciunas and Thompson right now is you're seeing Thompson play for really the first time in his career. He has a very clearly defined role, and the team is relying on him, and he's playing with a ton of confidence and a ton of energy and focus, because I think he knows where his lane is. The team wants him to do something. He's accepted that, and he's just going for it really hard, and they're doing well. And I think that as a player, you really feed off of that, and you get a lot of confidence in your game. And it was kind of the opposite of what we've seen from Valanciunas, who doesn't really seem to know what his role is, gets punished whenever he steps out in that or doesn't succeed, and he's nervous and plays with a real lack of confidence. So that's a big difference as far as how a team can have an impact on how you play.
Yeah, good point. Will, you got anything else to say here? Can we move on to our next topic on the bullet list?
They're just very different players. It's like if you compare Tristan Thompson to Timofey Mozgov. Whatever. They're weird. They're different types of bigs, and it's hard to compare. I think JV's better. Yeah,
we're recording this prior to Game 2, but man, in Game 1, you brought up Timothy Mozgov, like that whole thing that the Cleveland did by taking Mozgov off and bringing in James Jones in overtime. That didn't make sense to me. I just thought that Mozgov was doing just fine, rolling to the rim hard and getting some high percentage looks. It didn't make sense to me. Yeah. Okay. So segue next into our next topic here. It's Masai Ujiri. He's got decisions to make. For the first time, I'd say he has some major decisions to make about the franchise, and it could go either way. So what is his most difficult item to think about this summer? What is his most difficult decision to make? Is it whether he keeps Lowry or DeRozan? What is it? Let's start with the Will on this one.
I think it's what to do about DeRozan, because this is effectively a contract year for DeRozan. He has a player option for $10 million at 16-17, but he's clearly going to decline that because he's worth more than that. And if on the open market he gets a max deal under the new cap, which is going to be about $90 million that season, next season, it's DeRozan can earn up to $25 million, which sounds like a bigger number, but it's basically the same percentage of the cap as a normal max deal would be anyway.
$25 million a year.
Yeah. But out of a salary cap of $90 million, so right. It's still like around 28% of the cap. It's not that much bigger. Yeah, so it's tricky, right? Because if you trade DeRozan to sort of recoup assets now, it sends sort of the wrong message to players like Lowry, Patterson, and stuff. And it's questionable. So unless you're going to bring back a guy like Nick Batum, like you guys mentioned in the last podcast, there's questions about winning. Plus, DeRozan's been a great soldier for the franchise, definitely a key piece of the team. So, if you do deal him, then that's you're gonna have to face those questions. But at the same time, if Masai is of the mindset that maybe DeRozan isn't a core piece of this team going forward, or he doesn't necessarily want to build around DeMar and pay him the max, then it might be a smart move to go ahead and make that trade and recoup some assets. DeMar is very young, and trading him would mean a full season and also his bird rights. So that's very valuable to any team that's trying to get DeRozan anyway in free agency and just want to do so with money, they can at least pay him a little bit more on the max, which is being very enticing for DeRozan.
So is it like, does he even think about, like, is his rationale behind a potential trade of DeRozan going to be that's just too much money to pay for a guy I really want to keep, or is it that I can't win a championship with this guy, I gotta ship him and get what I can? Is it going to be not wanting to pay him, or is it going to be that he's not the right guy to pay? I guess it's a bit of both, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is that if you're paying him, if you're giving him the max, then it is extremely difficult to get the other amount of play, because at that point you're not going to be getting lottery picks, so you need to bring guys in through trades or free agency to fill those holes. And who are you going to attract with a max contract, or how are you going to bring other guys in when you don't have that much flexibility? And you're saying, like, here, if you come and play with DeMar, we can win a championship. I don't
Kevin
know
Durant,
if that's
baby.
a pitch. Yeah, exactly.
We got Gravis Vasquez, Kevin Durant's best friend.
What? He's
not at all.
Yeah, no. He's more of a friend with former Bachelor Juan Pablo. Yeah, I think that you need to look at that, and I think that Masai is really going to be looking at not just DeMar, but this whole idea of the team as constituted. Is this going to be able to go where I want it to go? So not just trading DeMar, but looking at potentially blowing up any and everything, not just to blow it up, but just putting everything on the table.
Yeah, I don't know. I think this is one of the decisions he has to make. I think even Lowry, I think that's up in the air as well. I think he's got to decide on what he wants to do with him. But overall, like, the big question is that, does he think that DeRozan and Lowry together as a tandem are the two guys that are going to lead this team forward? So either it's a yes, and I'm going to supplement them with a third player who might be even better than them, and they'll take us forward, or is it, do I need to tweak? And I said like 4 podcasts ago, like, if you're going to make a meaningful tweak this summer, like a major tweak, or major tweak, does that even make sense? Like, if you're going to make a change that'll take this team forward, I think you have to kind of start with those two and take one of them out and see what you can do. Otherwise, you're just like replacing peripheral parts, which I don't think are going to make a huge difference to the roster. You almost have to ship one of them or make a change there and see what you get.
Well, I mean, like, if you want to contend,
if these two remain your two best players, I don't know if you're going to win the East.
Right, but I mean, they have the opportunity to actually add some very real talent this year with cap space.
Okay, let me put it this way:
trade assets.
If they get a guy in free agency, he has to be better than one of DeMar and Lowry. Coming into next season, you can't have these two as your two best players.
So if you get a guy like Nick Batum, for example,
who's Nick Batum, eh? Yeah.
Definitely about approximately as good as DeRozan, I'd say. I don't know.
Without giving up DeRozan, or in addition to DeRozan?
It's Portland. I mean, it comes from Portland's perspective. If LaMarcus doesn't sign in Portland, then they probably want to rebuild because all their key guys are free agents, and it doesn't really make sense to bring them all back without LaMarcus. So they probably want to trade Nick Batum. Well. You can probably get him for a pick, Yeah.
If you get Batum in here next season, I think you've improved your team, and I think you have actually a player who's better than DeRozan right now. And I'd be okay with that. Andrew?
If Nick Batum gets his shot back with his hand being healthy, I don't think there's a lot of question that he's a better overall player than DeRozan. He's fantastic defensively, and before he went cold last year, he was able to shoot great from 3 and make plays. So
yeah, I mean, when over the final 44 games of the season, he shot like 39% from deep.
Yeah, the 32% he shot last year from 3 I think that's a bit of an anomaly. I think if you look at his history before that, exactly. I don't think you can take anything into that. I think he's like 36% before that, 37, 39. So he's always been a good shooter. He shot 40% one year. So
yeah, he just really hates Spanish players.
Yeah,
that's right.
Does he?
Oh yeah. Well, besides,
do you remember when he clocked
hammering Juan Carlos Navarro in the balls?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought he had a quote or something somewhere.
Oh, he did that as well. That was during the Memphis series this year. There was like a pinup in the Portland locker room. We're not losing to Spanish players or something like that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's continue with that trend of hate And talk about Terrence Ross a little bit. Our man he's been at it again. This time on Instagram. I think that's his favorite avenue of battle. That's where he likes to throw his weight around. It's not on the court, that's for sure. But on Instagram, this guy's a champ. So this time he posted a meme, basically some overweight guy on a computer saying, the top part of the meme had, "Hold on, I got to talk some shit about," and then the bottom part had "professional athletes," implying that the people who criticize him are basically fat neckbeards. And yeah, it again, I'll start with this one, Matt. It just seemed petty. It's one of those things he keeps doing. He keeps getting on online fights like it actually matters. And I wish he would just have the sense to just say, you know what, man, I am better than this. I don't need to debate these people on Instagram and make myself look like an idiot. But he continues to do this. Andrew, man, what's the solution here? Like media training for this guy, or I don't know.
I mean, like, I don't really care. I thought the picture was funny. Like, I think if Paul Pierce had have tweeted that, we all would have thought he was hilarious.
But again, it's Terrence Ross who did it. That's the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Like even this comment about the Raptors fans, like that's okay if DeRozan does it. It's okay if Paul Pierce does it, but not okay when Terrence Ross does it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like this idea of breeding this culture where we need to have athletes who are afraid to be honest, athletes who are afraid to speak their mind, whether it's, I mean, like there are certain extents to that. Like I don't want like hateful things coming out of a public figure, but I like the idea that they're willing to say like, hey, like screw you, or this is what I think of you, and come back at them. Like I very much prefer the idea of living in a culture where we have that kind of interaction with athletes instead of just getting the whole like play the team game, really got to focus on this, don't step out of line. Like I don't want everyone to be Russell Wilson.
Those aren't the two alternatives though. Like it's not either or. Like you could be outspoken but say like not the right things, but like be reasonable about these things. Like, I guess if we criticize Terrence Ross, we're just playing into this meme. But it all comes back to it's all about the messenger. It's not necessarily about the message. Yeah, these players get criticized, but like Terrence Ross, really, you're the one that's delivering this message. Like that's what Zora said. Like, if it's DeRozan coming out and saying this, is fine. So while I'm all for players coming out and saying things, it's great, and speaking their minds, but that doesn't mean they can speak their minds, and we can't criticize it for being stupid or
for sure
misguided, and really undeserved.
Yeah, and just like like you're above this, man. That's like if I'm making millions, like I'm a professional athlete. The last thing I do is like let social media get to me, and clearly it gets to him. And I know he's immature enough to let this actually affect his game. 100%, I'm convinced of that one. I don't think he's a guy who can just kind of this doesn't stop like right here. He's got this in his on the court. He's thinking about this. It's all up in him, man. It's not just an online thing. It's a part of his life. Like it affects him to that degree. And I really honestly think it affects his basketball game on the court.
Yes, he definitely plays with himself. Like he looks like he's in the back of his own mind.
Definitely plays with himself.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, he should be spending less time tweeting angry things at online writers and more time direct tweeting porn stars again. I think that was when he had his best little stretch.
Yeah.
That's how he gets his brain back.
Lisa Ann, was it? I think. Yeah. All right, so I think we covered all that we kind of wanted to talk about. There was one item that was kind of at the bottom of the backlog here, and it was like, we know what Masai's best move has been so far. It's been the trade against Sacramento, even though it was not intended that way.
But sure it wasn't the Bargnani deal?
Yeah,
I think it's the Bargnani
that
deal.
Draft pick, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's gonna be great.
If the Knicks and the Nuggets both suck this year, that's a lottery pick.
All right, maybe TBD on that one. I guess it's TBD. It's a TBD. But what's been his worst move so far? Like, what has he done that, what's his worst move so far as a GM?
Bringing Dwayne Casey back for this season?
That's not official yet, though, is it?
Not necessarily. And we're not also sure if that's his call or the board's call or what that is, but.
Dwayne Casey, bringing back Dwayne Casey. Good one, man. Good one. Hey, Will, what do you got?
In terms of signings, I'd say re-signing Graves Vasquez for 2 years. $14 million, but I mean that's not even what's a crippling 2-year deal? It's not like the Raptors are going to do too much with their cap space anyway. Like these 2 years, so that's I don't know.
Like he hasn't made any horrible moves. Like everything he's done so far has paid off. So
And if he wants to make big trades this year, that Vasquez contract could actually come in very handily.
Yeah. And I'll give him a pass on the Dwayne Casey thing for now, but I'll say I'll be nitpicky and I'll say the lack of move he had at the deadline this year, despite knowing that the team had some serious shortcomings on defense, in the front court, he didn't address that. So I think as much as the first round sweep was Dwayne Casey's fault and the players' fault and not executing and not having a game plan, I think at the deadline, Ujiri knew this could have been a potential problem, and he really didn't do anything to solve it. So I'd say the lack of move at the deadline to address big man depth was it for me. So it's not a move he made; it's a move he didn't make.
All right,
fair enough.
All right.
He's been pretty good.
Yeah, he's been all right. He's been all right. He's got him some he's got some rope, and I think let's see what he does this summer. It should be an interesting one. And I think that's it, guys. It's been a blast, and we'll come back next week with another edition of Raptors Weekly, taking you week by week all through training camp. Talk to you guys then. Say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Farewell.